My name is Ian, welcome to Planted. I'm on a mission to share my plant knowledge with you so that you have more success at home. In this video, we look at the year so far and how plants manage to cope with the weather extremes. Ever since I started growing plants when I was a kid, I've always been amazed at how plants manage to thrive. Here we are in a torrential downpour as remnants of a hurricane pass over the coast of New England. And these plants are outside doing what they do. Somehow they manage to survive. And this video is all about a snapshot of the year, taking into account the variations in weather, the variations in growing conditions, and how sometimes our efforts hamper their natural ability to grow. It would be very easy to go through the planted courtyard and try and stake and tie everything. And what you do is actually make the plants weaker. Now there are some times when stakes are required, but I'm not a big fan of it. I'd much rather let the plants move around, and if a few branches break, so be it. I only tied up the tree dahlia, and that was well worth it. In winter in New England, we can get some real storms come through. It's not unusual for us to get a foot of snow 3 or 4 times a year, and sometimes it can be deeper than that. The point I want to make here is that this video is a snapshot. I'm showing you all the things that happen in the year, from simple spring planting, where you dig out a really good size hole, take your choice plant, and you put it there with the expectation that it will receive the food and the nutrient and the water it requires so that it can flower. This is a dahlia. It did very well. Now, heavy rain has the ability to put so much weight on our plants, but here we have the Cochleosanthus happily surviving through the storm, being battered and blown around, and it'll do just fine. A big fan of the hedge that I've got. This is the American beech, and what it does is it retains its leaves throughout the winter, and you get this translucent beauty, and they shimmer and move around. This is the Arundodonax in springtime, just starting to put out lots of new shoots. There are so many clues that you can get from gardening about how plants are responding. This is the everlasting sweet pea. One branch managed to fight off the slugs. The slugs got the rest of it. A quick placement of some orange peel, and that being removed that population so that the plants could thrive. Big fan of my greenhouse, big fan of my cold frame. This allows me to start plants in February and March and get 6 weeks to 2 months of extra growth. As you get more enamored with plants and planting, you'll want to take cuttings. And there is no more rewarding way than to grow plants that you want by having a branch given to you by a friend and growing your own cuttings. And then you've got plant divisions. Now this is a video I did. This is a dahlia tuber, a very substantial dahlia tuber. When you get the dahlia of your dreams, very easy to make your own plants, go from 1 plant to 5 plants, give 3 away, trade 1, and you've got more varieties and more color than you could ever imagine. So that's dividing a dahlia. This is a plant called Hedychium. Not a plant you come across very often, and I overwintered it and then rinse it out. And you can see here, the plant's very alive, very vibrant. We've got lots of new shoots. So then it's time to take a knife to it and start chopping it up into plants with a shoot and ample root. I point these tasks out because this is a snapshot of the entire year and how we have to work with the season, work with the weather. This is one of my favorite plants. This is the everlasting sweet pea that I showed you earlier, and here it is flowering, looking just exquisite. And you don't get this explosion of growth without some degree of plan. It's easy to buy plants, put them in, buy some more plants, put them in, and not really think it out. Big fan of drawing the house, drawing your boundary to a scale, and then start marking out where a key plant will go and where a bench will go and where the path will go. And before you know it, you've got a plan that you're actually implementing. and that will save you time and save you money. I do like figs. I've had great success propagating my own figs from choice cuttings. I like to put them in glass jars on a heated mat. I find that the glass jar transmits the heat nicely. This one's actually got a fig on a cutting. That should be removed, otherwise it'll take all the energy from the cutting to the detriment of it rooting. But gardening is all about consistency and moving forward. You take your cuttings, they get themselves into the greenhouse along with all sorts of other goodies, either gifts, divisions, new purchases, seedlings, you name it. And your greenhouse does not need to be that big. This is tiny. This is 4 feet by 6 feet. In the springtime, I typically have 50 to 60 plants in there. And I can just stand inside. I hardly ever close the door because I just need to reach inside. And those cuttings ultimately will grow because you've chosen good varieties. And you can then readily send out your chief advisor to go and pick fresh figs. And there's something really nice about sharing not just figs or fruit, but sharing plants, sharing flowers, and giving it away freely. I do it all the time. I really, really enjoy it. Recently had an event with some friends. I took a big bowl of figs, and it was widely revered as being delicious and tasty. So here we have a flashback. We go back to the garden before it's been planted. This is back in spring. And it's really easy to get wrapped up in exactly what you're doing at that time and not have this bigger, longer term understanding of what you're doing. Fall time is a really good time to get ahead. Don't be afraid to let the frosts come, prune back, and add leaves. Most people are trying to get rid leaves and move them off their yard. I'm that strange guy that goes out there and gets leaves and puts them on my plants. This is my tree dahlia, and I put some layers of leaves on it. And you want to build it up quite tall, you can put in a layer of Tyvek to help keep the water out of the crown. But if you have a layer of anywhere from 12 inches to 18 inches, and with this being at the base of the wall, it helps keep that crown frost-free. We've shown you how to pot up containers using the sleeve method, where you space your empty pots where you want them, and then fill up the potting mix around those pots. Pull out the pot and put the plant in that corresponds to it. No broken leaves, no broken branches, and a beautifully spaced arrangement. So this naturally is a job that you'd be doing in springtime, and I've been able to plant these up in late March, have them in my greenhouse, and then they come out late April, and they're just off to the races. I am many, many weeks ahead of the game. So do get into gardening and do take this year-round approach. You're there to make sure that they get watered, they get enough fertilizer, they get pruned. And if you choose the right varieties, and with a greenhouse, you can easily create an environment where you end up with this type of arrangement. Very thick, floriferous, burgeoning, healthy, lots of fragrance, lots of flowers, wonderful foliage. And my wife and I go out there with our friends. We sit in these two beautiful benches, and we just watch the world go by in a little secret oasis. The garden's tiny. It doesn't take a lot of my time, and because it's so small, I can only have a few choice plants, which makes it very manageable. So, don't be put off by the bad weather, whether it's hot, cold, dry or wet. Plants are very forgiving, and if you can have a more of a global view of your year and do the right job at the right time, you'll be off to the races. Here we are in late August. As I just started out, we had a big storm come through. It won't be long now before the days really start to draw in. The temperature will drop, and we'll be in the most amazing planting window for all sorts of trees, shrubs, perennials, and vines. So on that note, thank you for watching. Tell your friends, tell your family. Happy planting.